Hello and welcome. This is Julianne with Life Edit and Design. And today we are talking about the 10 things you want to eliminate when you're doing lifestyle design. Because we talk a lot about how to do it, but sometimes you need to take things away just to give yourself room to do lifestyle design. So let's dive in. And first thing, just to make sure we're all talking about the same things, when I'm talking about lifestyle design, I'm talking about deliberately creating a life. So intentionally designing your life that is in accordance with the things that you want, your values, your goals, your dreams, and it's a lot about kind of questioning what society has told you is the right thing to do and kind of kicking that to the curb and doing what you want to do. And it's really about coming down to how you spend these three things: the money, your energy, and your time. And doing that with intention instead of letting the world kind of grab it and steal it and do what it wants with it. So this is all about you making the intentional use of your time, money, and energy. So let's dive into some things that are kind of robbing you of that time, money, and energy and see how we eliminate them. So the first thing is you cannot go on a journey of intentional life design if you are afraid of change. It's never going to work. You got to love change. You got to embrace it and feel like this is exciting. You've done the same old, same old. So why would you want to bring that into your intentional life design? You really want to bring something new and challenging and fun. So look for those new experiences and really be excited about it. And when you're afraid all the time, when you're afraid to look stupid, which is one of my biggest fears, you'll really hold yourself back so much in life, because especially when everybody's a beginner at one time, right? So there's going to be times where when you're trying something new and it's a change for you, you're going to have some moments where you look stupid or feel unprofessional or unprepared or just looking embarrassed. Those are just part of the journey. So you have to embrace that, bring that fear of change and say, hey, I see it. I'm going to do it anyway. So if you have fear, ignore it, move through it, whatever you have to do. But you really need to know that change is going to be for the better. And that's something healthy to bring into your lifestyle design. Next is another one of my huge, huge problems, which is perfectionism. You got to kick it to the curb. That's We have pictures of a vase. What do they call it? I forget what the name is, but it's a Japanese term, I believe, where they add gold to a broken vase to make it even better and even more beautiful. And so you have to kind of look at the flaws, the things that you perceive as flaws, and look at them as part of your gifts, part of the beauty that you bring to the world, because we're all different and we all have flaws that maybe we perceive as flaws, but other people perceive as a strength, or maybe just a unique aspect of you that really makes you stand out and differentiates you from the crowd. So kick perfectionism to the curb. I need to take this advice myself, because especially when we talk about the fear of change, when you're starting something new, for me, perfectionism is like, oh, I should just be great at it right out of the gate. And obviously that is not the case. Even with recording these videos, it's hard for me to do it because I'm not perfect at it. I don't know the best ways to do it, but you know what? You just got to start. You got to go for something. You got to aim for progress. Just start somewhere, try something, and just understand that mistakes are part of the learning process and have fun with them. Be like, laugh at yourself. Bring some humor to the situation, because you're going to make mistakes, and that's just part of the game. And the next one, those negative relationships. Who are those energy vampires in your life? Who are the people that are really draining you, or who just always focus on the negativity? Because when you're in an environment full of negative people, it's you're just going to adapt, right? You're going to absorb their energy and you're going to kind of be at their level. So take those negative people, those negative situations. So if you know that when you're, around the proverbial water cooler and that's where negative pot stirring happens, those are the things you want to break away from. So you may be great with certain people one-on-one, but when you're in a group setting, there tends to be this negative vibe. That's what I found a lot of when I was working, was just, well, two of us would start complaining, and all of a sudden three or four more people would all come together and we'd have a nice little wine fest. And that's not what you want. So you look for those negative relationships or just negative situations and avoid them. You don't need any more energy vampires in your life. This is, something that when you're moving forward and you're raising your vibration, you don't need people that are going to drag you back down. Toxic habits. This one is so, you don't even realize it sometimes. So I put in here also looking for those toxic patterns, because a lot of times you have bad habits and then you stack them together and it becomes a whole pattern or a whole routine. So if you start off your morning and it's one negative thing after another, and you've got this whole downward spiral going into your day, well, that's going to kind of taint your whole day. So look for healthier habits, things that you can break those toxic patterns, find them, eliminate them. And a lot of that is again, it starts in that morning when you first grab your phone. If that's what the first thing you do, don't grab your phone. Maybe grab something inspirational, or go outside. Just find things to break those patterns so that you can build toxic habits out of your life and build in these positive new habits. So again, we're focusing on things to take away, but everything you take away creates a vacuum and something new needs to come in. So be thinking about how you can replace those toxic habits with alternatives that are really for your good and for your well-being. And then excessive commitments. I think this kind of goes with maybe those energy vampires, those people that then pull you into committing to things, saying yes to things that you don't want. So, how can you say no to obligations, requests for your time that aren't in alignment with your values? So, you really need to know what your values are and what your goals are. But then, if people ask for things, start to look at and say, no, I don't want that. I'm not going to commit to that. And also look at decluttering those responsibilities. What do you have in your life already that maybe made sense at one point, but it's no longer part of your journey? And these kind of get stuck. We get stuck in this habit of helping, or maybe it's things you've always done for your family that you no longer need to do for your family. Maybe they're capable of doing things themselves, or maybe there's somebody that's better at it that's come into your circle, or maybe it's just time for them to learn to do something on their own. This is especially true when you have children who have grown up a bit, and it's time to say, hey, you can do this thing on your own and you no longer need to do that. So look at those responsibilities. What do you want to kind of get out of your life? Again, to make room for things that bring more joy into your life. So lifestyle design is about doing a lot of new things, but you need to get some stuff out of the way to make room for those new things. Procrastination. This, fortunately, this is something I don't have too much of in my life, but it's one of those things that weigh you down. And I guess in the one area I really do have this is when it comes to doing my strength training. I put it off and it weighs down on me all the time, all week long. It's like, oh, you didn't do that strength workout yet. So now I do them on Sundays so I don't have to think about it all week. So, what can you do? How do you get those things that you always put on the back burner, those things you just don't give your energy to, but that drain you all week long? How do you get those done in the beginning of the week? That's, for me, that has been a big help, is just get it done. And then I never have to think about the rest of the week. And that's a huge help for me. So look at what you can do to set yourself up for success. A lot of times we kind of set ourselves up for failure by making things harder to do. And then you put it off and put it off and put it off, and it just drains you all week. So going back into those energy vampires, maybe you're your own energy vampire. Maybe you're draining your energy by having something on your to-do list that you just keep putting off and putting off. Comparisons. This is another big one. I have a lot of those on the list, don't I? But comparison is like looking at somebody else's finished product and comparing it to your newbie product, right? So you're just starting out, like, I'm just starting out creating videos. Am I as good as somebody who has all these editing tools and knows what to do? No, but I compare myself to that, and that just kind of takes it away. Like, here I am. I'm at the beginning. This is what I'm capable of. This is what works for me today. Don't compare your start to somebody else's 3 years of experience and having a team behind them, or really loving it. Like, I don't really love creating videos, but somebody who loves it might spend the time to learn all the bells and whistles. So don't compare yourself. Look at other people and say, hey, that's great. It's something that maybe will inspire you or maybe motivate you, but it's not a point of comparison. Just fall in love with the progress. I love this. I got that from Trent Shelton's book, uh, Protect Your Peace. And it's fall in love with the progress of what you're doing, not the outcome, not the final destination, but the progress. Enjoy the stumbles, the mistakes, because it shows that you're doing something there. You're out there on the field, you're playing, and enjoy that part, and don't build so much into the comparisons. And this leads to those unrealistic expectations, right? You look at somebody who's got way more time and effort invested into something, or way more knowledge about something, and you're making unrealistic expectations that you're going to be able to do that. Or you watch somebody's program, they say 30 days to run a marathon, and you're, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that. Is that realistic for you? Is it really, do you have the time to commit to that? Do you have the desire to commit to that? Does your schedule allow when you have other people competing for your time? Maybe, maybe not, but don't set yourself up for failure, as we talked about in a few slides ago. Setting up with unrealistic expectations sets yourself up for failure. Instead, do things small. Do have little goals, little points where you can get yourself to that first success and the next success, and really, really allow for that flexibility, because life always happens. So don't expect perfectionism. Don't expect that comparison thing. Just expect that you're going to do the best that you can, and that life is going to happen, and you're going to roll with it, and things are going to change. And unnecessary clutter. This is a big part of lifestyle design, is kind of making things a little bit more minimal, stripping away all the things you don't need. So, what are the physical things that clutter your space? And what are the mental things? Like, are you holding on to a lot of maybe old goals that you think you should still be pursuing, but no longer fit you? Start to release all that mental clutter. Clear out items you don't need physically and digitally. So, if you look at an email box and you have emails from like 10 years ago that you don't even need anymore, like, just hit delete. Don't even look at them. Just hit delete. If you haven't looked at them in 10 years, you don't need them anymore. So start to get all that clutter out. And when you do, when you start to organize your space, you have calm, you have space for this growth to happen. So, and a lot of times when you're trying to do lifestyle design, you have to clear the decks because there's no room for you to grow. There's just too much physical and mental clutter in your space. And one of the things a friend of mine used to do when I was working, she used to say, "Oh, I'm on a negativity fast." And that was her way of clearing out people and thoughts and things that just dragged her down. So anytime she caught herself during the, she would do like for a week, anything that she caught herself thinking negatively about or starting to get into a negative spin, she cleared that away. It was just clutter that didn't need to be in her life. And it's, easier to do for a shorter time. So kind of clear out that stuff that drags you down, the gunk, the dark, dirty stuff that holds you back from where you want to go. You're doing intentional life design, and it's going to require, again, that making space and clearing out the mental and the physical clutter. And the last one that we're going to go into is that mindless consumption. You know, there's a time and a space, I think, for some mindless consumption, but it's not all the time. It's not like as soon as you get home from work, flipping on the TV or flipping on social media and just letting someone else do all the work and you just absorb. That's not what's not going to give you the room that you need for intentional life design. So start to look at, what can you, when is mindless clutter or mindless consumption okay? Like maybe you give yourself 30 minutes at some point in the day when everything else is done and your brain is just fried. That's the time to do it, but don't do it when you're at your prime time. Don't do it first thing in the morning when you're certainly primed and ready for your day and you're setting yourself up for your day, and then you spend it doing something mindless. Like, what's the point of that? Spend it, if you're going to do it at the end of your day. But if you can, choose alternatives. Read, if you're going to read, can you read a book that's more inspiring and motivational rather than something about, dystopian with, the world ending? Unless that inspires you in some way to make it world better, start to be very, very conscious of what you let in. I haven't watched the news in years because I don't want to let all that negativity into my life. So it's part of that negativity fast, but it's also about part of that comparison. Like when you start to consume other things, social media, things that you're just mindlessly letting it in, there's no barrier. And now you've got all this stuff stacking up of how you think the world's supposed to be or should be based on what you've seen from other people instead of being how you intend it to be. So get that all out of your life, and also get that mindless consumption that's physical, the eating of the snacks, the mindless food, the mindless drinking. Like if you come home and you just have that, we talked about those toxic habits. Maybe one of your toxic habits is to sit down and have a glass of wine or a bottle of beer, and you're not even enjoying it anymore. You're not getting any benefit. It's just mindless. It's just something you do. And then when you're sitting there, then you eat a bag of chips, and all that comes together. And that's working against your intentional lifestyle design. So as you can see, we went over 10 things, but they all kind of interrelate. One thing kind of enables another thing, or one thing promotes another thing that you don't want to happen. And it all kind of builds up. So as you're deciding, okay, here's 10 things I could do, I want you to start to look at some of the things, like what is the easiest thing to do? What's the lowest hanging fruit? Maybe there's something of these 10 steps or something you can do pretty easily without a whole lot of effort. Maybe it's just you don't have wine in the house and that was very easy for you. The last bottle is almost empty. So you don't buy anymore. Like, what is the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest thing that you can do? Or what is the most fun thing for you to do? If you no longer want to do comparison, like if you don't want that anymore in your life, what can you do? What can you turn on its head so that every time you kind of lean towards comparison, you kind of flip it and say, hey, that's for them, but that's not me. I'm on my journey. Like, how do you take that comparison game or the procrastination? How do you turn that into a game and say, well, I'm going to do today. I'm going to do one little thing for that today, and it's going to be fun for me. I'm going to make it playful. I'm going to make it a game so that I don't have to think about it all week. And then the one in the center here is, what is the one thing that if you were to do it would create the most space? So maybe it's that mindless consumption. Like if that's the one thing that if you were to take that out and replace that time that you spend surfing social media mindlessly, what would allow that to come into that space? So a couple different ways of looking at it. So I like to do the one thing because, as you saw, so many of these were interrelated. So if you decide to tackle toxic habits, how many other things would be tackled by just you tackling toxic habits? So a lot of times, the one thing you tackle actually has an exponential effect in a lot of other areas. Or maybe, the clearing away of clutter. If you started to clear away clutter, maybe 10 other things would start to fall into place because now you had room to breathe. You had a sense of calm. And now, with that sense of calm, you were inspired to take on a new project, or you're inspired to learn something because you had the room and the space to do it. So just kind of look at that. There's three different ways of taking action, and not just taking this video in and going, oh, that's nice. Do something with it. If you're here, you want to learn about intentional lifestyle design. Well, here's 10 things that you can take away that will start to lay the good platform for what you want to do going forward. So just remember, again, to close with, lifestyle design is an ongoing process that never ends, and it's going to adjust, it's going to morph, it's going to change as you go through it. And that's great. That's part of the fun, is what you thought you're going to be looking for this year is actually something different because it's evolved. And just enjoy the journey. And so next steps, if you haven't already watched the What is Lifestyle Design video, the basics video, I'll put the link below. And also, what is the first step to lifestyle design process? So we've talked about 10 things to get rid of. As you're getting rid of them, what is the first thing you want to do to kind of get involved and get moving forward on the lifestyle design process? So we'll see you in the next video. And thanks for spending some time with me. Take care.